I'm not sure if you've ever heard about Dulce underground base in New Mexico, but it's all of the things like this. This information is literally everywhere, and for the millions and millions of people who are afraid this time matrix is going to fall one day to the Dracos and the Zetas, it's because this information keeps getting laughed at.
Myrna Hansen remembered that as she was driving and saw very bright lights in the sky, she and her son got out of the car to see what they were. The lights were coming from a floating craft and were affecting a herd of cattle. One cow seemed to be struggling and panicking as it was levitated up into one of the objects. Then she remembered that she was abducted and given a thorough and very violating physical examination. And though her abductors never spoke, she recalls hearing them in her mind. They said she was taken by accident, but now that she was here, they had no choice but to continue with the procedure. She described their appearance as what we now call a gray alien. She also reported being taken to an underground base, and there she saw body parts floating in vats of bubbling liquid, and she remembered a terrible smell. The alien abduction stories are unfortunately fairly common now, but in 1980, this was very unusual. Then Myrna remembered something really disturbing, something that could be confirmed. She said a device was surgically implanted into her body, and she believed this was so the aliens could track her and control her mind. Now, this could be checked. Myrna was taken to the nearby Lovelace Medical Center and x-rayed. At the base of her skull, right where she said it would be, was the implant. Myrna also had a very faint scar on the back of her neck. Now, to be fair, the doctors thought it was a natural growth, though they didn't know what kind. The doctors might not have been convinced, but Myrna Hansen, Gabe Valdez, and Paul Benowitz were. There was an alien presence focused on the Kirtland Air Force Base and on the town of Dulce not far away. Now remember, Paul Benowitz was reporting everything he saw to the Air Force. Richard Doty, an agent working for the Air Force Office of Special Investigation, or OSI, was assigned to Paul's case. And Doty and Paul spent so much time together that they became personal friends. Paul showed Richard Doty sketches that Myrna Hansen made of what she saw while she was abducted. She drew hallways, elevators, rooms, and laboratories. Then Doty confirmed that her drawings matched the Manzano Weapons Storage Complex, which was an underground facility. And over the next 20 years, more and more information would emerge that confirmed not only are aliens on Earth, but they're also working with the United States government. But when did this partnership begin? And why would the government be working with aliens, and for what goal? Well, in 1995, we would get our answer when Phil Schneider, an engineer who helped build Dulce Base, blew the whistle. And it's darker than you could possibly imagine. In 2021, the Pentagon budget was $750 billion. And since 1996, the American military has received $8.5 trillion in taxpayer dollars and never has had to account for any of it. In 2016, an investigation discovered that the Pentagon was covering up $125 billion in so-called wasted dollars. Now, if the military budget comes up short in a given year, whatever number that is just written in. It's called a plug, and then boom, balanced budget.
You try that with your taxes and see how that works out for you.
Well, they throw you in jail. But there's evidence that the money is not being wasted. It's actually part of the Pentagon's black budget. In 1995, at the Preparedness Expo, Phil Schneider blew the whistle on one of the most secret black budget programs in history.
On the southwest part of the Archuleta Mesa, we built an underground facility, a better part of 3 cubic miles hollowed out underground. We were in the process of the early stages of building. We drilled 4 large tunnel-like holes. Some of them ran 2.5 miles under the surface. The equipment kept coming up broken. So we wanted to go down. We wanted to send somebody down there, a human observer, or human observers in this case, to find out what was going on.
In 1979, Schneider was working for Morrison Knudsen on a geology team, digging exploratory shafts for a new underground base in Dulce. And though working with heavy-duty equipment, the drills kept breaking. Once a drill punched through, Phil described black, sooty air billowing up through the opening, and the air smelled like rotten garbage. Phil put on a protective suit and headed down the lift to investigate. And on the way, walking through camp, he noticed there were an awful lot of armed troops.
When I saw Green Beret and Black Beret people encamped inside of our geologist camp, I knew something was up.
When Phil reached the bottom, he was face to face with a 7-foot-tall gray alien. He said its stench was worse than anything he'd ever smelled before. Then another alien appeared. Phil panicked, grabbed his pistol, and started firing. And he managed to kill one of the aliens, but the others started firing back. Phil was hit with what he called a plasma weapon and lost 2 fingers and part of his left hand. And this plasma weapon also gave him cancer.
Never bring a gun to a plasma fight.
That's good advice. Now, Phil thought he was dead when suddenly a Green Beret who had followed him down grabbed him and put him on the lift. Now, Phil made it, but nobody else did. 66 men lost their lives in what was called the Battle of Dulce Base. The American military had accidentally drilled into an alien base that had been there for 400 or 500 years. So now the military had a choice to make: go to war with the aliens or cooperate with them. Now, winning a war against entities with such advanced technology wasn't possible, so a deal was struck. Aliens would give advanced technology to humans.
Now, what did the humans have to give to the aliens?
Well, humans would have to give the aliens other humans.
Our United States government lied to not tell us anything about the alien threat. There's a war underneath there, and I'm talking dead serious.
Phil Schneider was an outspoken advocate for government transparency about the alien presence on Earth. He became well known on the UFO lecture circuit, giving talks about his time working on top-secret government projects. He's most known for his talk at the 1995 Preparedness Expo, where he revealed all kinds of information. As of 1995, there were 131 active secret underground bases in the United States and 1,477 around the world. All the bases in the United States are connected by magnetic levitation trains that can reach speeds of Mach 2. Phil said that there are 7 benevolent alien species currently living on Earth, and 4 evil species. He said that the U.S. government signed 4 treaties with the aliens in 1944, in 1954, 1962, and the last one in 1979 after the Dulce battle. The treaty signed in 1954, called the Greada Treaty, was signed between the U.S. government and a species of gray aliens. And the treaty says aliens would be allowed to abduct and experiment on humans as long as the U.S. government, specifically the committee known as Majestic 12, was informed and provided a list of abductees.
The government sure does like making lists of people, huh?
It sure does.
And why it is so many abductions? Don't aliens know how boring humans are?
Well, according to Phil Schneider, at least 9 races of aliens view humans as a food source.
It's a cookbook.
It's a cookbook. No! No!
Classic Twilight Zone episode. But the aliens don't consume human flesh. Instead, they use the secretions of glands from mammals. This species of alien suffers from a genetic disorder, and the enzymes in mammal hormones keep the aliens healthy. And some alien races use human adrenaline as a recreational intoxicant.
Ugh, they get high from human secretions?
They do.
Yeah, that's a hard pass for me.
Me too. Now, in exchange for access to humans for experimentation, the aliens would provide the United States with advanced technology. According to Phil Schneider, military technology is 1,200 years ahead of what civilians have now. Stealth technology came from aliens. The U.S. government now has the ability to create special metal alloys, but they can only be created in the vacuum of space. The U.S. military has a device that causes earthquakes. The 1989 San Francisco earthquake and the 1995 Kobe earthquake were weapons tests.
Seiko to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take. I'll tell you what, we're having an
But Phil Schneider makes all kinds of other claims. He said the bombings of the World Trade Center in 1993 and the Oklahoma City bombing of 1995 were done with miniature nuclear devices provided by the aliens. He said AIDS and other viruses were created as a means of controlling the population.
All right, hold on. I gotta stop you there.
What?
You expect me to believe that a government would artificially create a dangerous virus in a lab? My friend, that is a bridge too far.
Sarcasm?
Yes, of course it's sarcasm.
Phil Schneider believed that all this was happening for one purpose: to establish a new world order. The alien plan is to completely take over the planet and eliminate almost 90% of the world's population.
Ooh, this is the kind of talk that makes the men in black come a knocking.
That's true. And Phil Schneider said he was under constant surveillance by the government. He even claimed he was attacked by an FBI agent and killed the agent in self-defense. And he reported this to the FBI, but nothing came of it.
Not because the government would have to admit to all this stuff.
That's right. Phil was constantly in fear for his life. He said he had 11 close friends all die under mysterious circumstances, but every death was ruled suicide. In fact, Phil Schneider told his friends and family over and over, if I ever end up dead, I didn't kill myself. It was murder. He was adamant about this.
Yeah, I can't help notice that you keep speaking about this guy in the past tense.
Well, in January 1996, just 4 months after he gave his famous lecture, Phil Schneider was found dead in his apartment.
Now, come on.
Apparently, he had taken his own life.
Oh, come on.
There's a good chance that when I fly back to Reno, excuse me, to Vegas, I have to drive home. I left my car down in Vegas. I have to drive home alone. I'm scared to hell.
Phil Schneider was constantly worried. He told his family that if he was ever found dead, to not believe the story, that it was murder. A few weeks after that, Phil Schneider was found dead in his apartment. At first, his death was ruled unknown, even though he had a medical tube wrapped around his neck. And a lot of details about his death don't add up. First, there was no note. Also, he had enough pills on hand to die painlessly. He also had a gun. The medical tube was wrapped around his throat 3 times and then tied in a knot under his chin. Now, strangling yourself this way seems difficult, especially in Phil's case. He was missing half of his left hand. His shoulders had limited motion. He had brittle bone syndrome from cancer and spent a lot of time in a wheelchair. He was a weak and frail man. The medical examiner, for some reason, refused to visit the scene, though he was legally required to. He did take blood and urine samples, but refused to test them because he said it was a waste of time. And when Phil's family inquired about those samples, they were told they were sent to an independent lab and were now missing. When Phil's ex-wife Cynthia went to collect his belongings, everything was gone. Recordings of Phil's lectures, photographs, research, even physical evidence from Dulce Base. It was all missing. And then something very strange happened. An obituary appeared in the local paper saying Phil died of a stroke. Phil's family didn't write that obituary. So who did?
Any senator, House of Representative, person, President of the United States, Vice President, any cabinet member lying to the American public is a traitor and should be dealt with in an appropriate fashion.
Phil Schneider wasn't the only person who claimed to know about Dulce Base. Thomas Castello was a military photographer with top-secret clearance, and he specialized in photographing sensitive projects. Castello worked in an underground facility near Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, most likely Area 51. He also worked at Dulce Base. In 1987, Castello turned whistleblower, and before he left Dulce Base, he stole a set of documents that were eventually called the Dulce Papers. He also stole 30 black and white photos as well as videotape.
There are several things you should know about. I took an oath under penalty of death that no matter what I saw or heard, I would never divulge the information. At the Dulce Base, treason is anything that mentions the details of daily operations at this facility when outside the confinement of this base. When I first arrived, the story they told us was that this is a tri-biotransfer facility with advanced technology doing advanced, adventurous methodology for medical and mental gains, which is a fancy way of saying they do really risky things with human life just to see what would happen.
This is the most famous Castello photograph, humans in pods.
What the hell's going on here?
Well, you know how aliens harvest human hormones for various purposes?
Yeah, I'm trying to forget it, but yeah.
Well, these are cloning bats. Much easier to use humans as a food source when you could just grow them in a tube. And Castello was the first person to show us the different floors of Dulce Base and what they were used for. Level 1 is security and communications. Level 2 is human staff and housing.
Wait a minute. If there's a floor labeled human staff, then that means...
There is housing for non-human staff.
No!
Level 3 is executive offices and labs. Level 4 is mind control experiments. Level 5 is alien housing. Level 6 is genetic experiments and the zoo.
What, the zoo?
Oh yeah. When genetic splicing between humans and aliens was successful, They would often put the hybrid creature on display.
Oh boy.
And level 7 is cryogenics and cold storage. Yeah?
This story, this is a lot.
Oh, have you had too much?
Oh, wait, there's more?
Oh, much more.
The alien agenda is the complete takeover of this planet, the killing off of 5, 6 to 7/8 of the world's population by the year 2029. The U.S. military has known about this for 45 years. They've told no one.
Most of the information we get from Costello comes from a single interview he gave called the Branton interview, and I'll link the full text below. Apparently there were, or are, over 180,000 aliens working in the facility. Costello gives us details about how the base is administered, and there are many different races that work there, and they're divided into ruling castes and worker castes.
Well, obviously humans are workers.
Obviously. But there are also alien worker castes, and ultimately all races report to a single ruling class called the Draco.
That sounds like
Lizard people.
lizard people! Yes! Hey, speaking of lizard people, now is a great time to pick up a Hecklefish Lizard People mug. It makes a great gift.
What are you doing?
What? Someone's got to do the plugs? Go to shop.thewifiles.com and grab your Lizard People mug today.
Anyway, the Draco...
Lizard people.
Lizard people are not alien. They evolved from reptiles and dinosaurs and have remained hidden. They created the underground tunnel system hundreds or thousands of years ago. And in the 1960s, they were made to be more suitable to humans and other races that the Draco created.
Created?
Oh, yeah. The Draco created races for labor.
The worker caste does the daily chores, mopping the latex floors, cleaning the cages, bringing food to the hungry people and other species. It is their job to formulate the proper mixture for the Type 1 and Type 2 beings that the Draco race has created. The working caste work at the labs as well as at the computer banks. Basically speaking, the reptilian races are active at all levels on the Dulce base. There are several different races of aliens that work on the east section of Level 6.
Thomas Costello lived the rest of his life in hiding in Europe. He's since passed away, but if you're interested in hearing more from him, I'll post a link to a message board where he answers a lot more questions. And I just scratched the surface here. His interview is the rabbitest of rabbit holes.
Rabbitist?
Shut up.
Oy vey.
John Lear might have had a more interesting life than his father, William Lear, who invented the Learjet. John Lear was a pilot who broke 17 world records in many types of aircraft. He flew cargo planes for the CIA in the 60s and 70s. John Lear was also one of the most visible proponents of the theory that not only are aliens here on Earth, but they're also colluding with the United States government. Lear became interested in UFOs in 1986 after talking with U.S. Air Force personnel who witnessed a UFO landing at Bentwaters Air Force Base near London. In that encounter, 3 small aliens walked right up to Wing Commander General Gordon Williams, and that became known as the Rendlesham Forest Incident. In 1988, Lear released a document titled UFO Cover-Up that exposed all kinds of secret government and alien activity. It's essentially a manifesto, and I'll link to the original text below. Lear covers the death of James Forrestal, Majestic 12, Roswell, abductions, cattle mutilations, and, of course, Dulce Base. Lear said that he gathered 4 independent confirmations that the 7-story Dulce Base complex was real. He even detailed the different species of aliens who live and work there.
The problem is not only just the fact that there are 5 and as many as 10 different civilizations visiting us. Apparently, and this is from the research that I've done, at least 90% of them are hostile. And when I say hostile, if not hostile, they have a completely different set of morals than we do.
John Lear believed that, based on evidence, aliens are trying to regenerate their own race at our expense. He said they suffered a nuclear holocaust or severe illness that caused their entire race to weaken. This is why, according to John Lear, aliens are attempting to crossbreed with humans. In fact, he said this was successfully done 7 times over several years. Lear discusses the book Intruders by Bud Hopkins. Hopkins spent years studying abduction cases and was one of the first to reveal that human females were being used to gestate alien or alien-human hybrid children. This was information Hopkins learned through interviewing and hypnotizing hundreds of abductees. Now, obviously, John Lear didn't subscribe to the theory that aliens are here to protect us from nuclear war or help us in any way. Aliens are here to use us as livestock, as breeding chambers, and as subjects of horrible experiments. And what's even more frightening is the United States government is complicit in all of this. John Lear ended his document by saying, "The best advice I can give you is, next time you see a flying saucer and are awed by its obvious display of technology, run like hell."
In 1947, the Air Technical Intelligence Center at Dayton, the top Air Force intelligence men and scientists under contract, sent a secret document to the commanding general of the Air Force saying that whatever these things were, they were real.
And it started out with a crash at Roswell.
1947 is what the public has been told. Something crashed in the backyard in New Mexico, a place called Roswell, New Mexico. Unfortunately, that's what the public's been told. The military's known about the alien question for the better part of 70 years.
And a second crash site that occurred in Magdalena, or Horse Mesa, out west of Magdalena, New Mexico.
And I have found out that the government has retrieved between 10 and 15 actual flying saucers, 3 of which have been in perfect condition, 1 of which they tried to fly.
And I know that they were reverse engineering. I was never actually briefed on it. But, common sense can tell me that this craft over here isn't something we made. It was reverse engineered.
Reverse.
Yeah. They trained 9 months before they ever flew it. And then they trained another, I can't remember how long, 4 or 5 months, flying it all around Nevada. And it worked fine.
I'm not attacking the United States Air Force. I'm attacking a small group in there that has been persistently keeping this from the public, just as they've kept other things.
The Air Force has made an art form of ridiculing people who have talked about this thing. They've done an excellent job of covering it up for the last 40 years.
We've been lied to, and the lies have got to stop, and they must stop immediately.
Okay. It goes on for another 12 minutes, but yeah, when he does these videos, he'll present them and then give his opinion at the end. And long story short, his opinion is, if this is all true, we're in trouble. And yeah, this is the shit that people are talking about, and it's not a fucking joke to me at all. I don't think any of it's a joke. And there's just way too much information out there on this, and these fucking draconians and these grays, I mean. So, yeah, I'm gonna go get ready for therapy.